When you think of the word intimacy, do you automatically think of sex? Intimacy is so much more than that. In this episode, I discuss the 6 different types of intimacy. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, Season 4, where we are focusing on mastery. The last 3 seasons, I gave you the information. Now, we're focusing on integrating it into our lives and embodying it. If you are ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and patterns to feel whole, fulfilled, and really grounded in who you are without dimming your shine so you can live the abundant life that you truly desire, then you are in the right place. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? Today's topic is juicy. We are talking about intimacy, and I have to admit, anytime I say the word Salt and Pepper's song, "Let's talk about sex, baby," it pops into my mind, although I know that intimacy is so much more than sex. So I want to open up this podcast episode with a really powerful quote. People think that intimacy is about sex, but intimacy is about truth. When you realize that you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you can stand in front of them and their response is, "You are safe with me," that is intimacy. That's a really amazing quote by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it just speaks to what this whole podcast episode is about. It is us sharing our truth and feeling safe to do so. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that a few years ago, I had an intimacy coach, and I used to always say on the podcast, when I say intimacy coach, it's not about sex, it's about connection. So if you've been listening to me, you know that connection is one of my top values, and I wasn't taught how to be intimate. I wasn't taught how to build connection. I'm from New York. I was raised by a single mom, and you had to be hard. Like, New Yorkers definitely have a hard exterior, and growing up by a single, strong Black woman, you know, there's I don't want to say a lack of nurturing, but if I'm being very honest, there's a lack of nurturing and softness and intimacy. So this is something in my adult life that I realized I was craving because I was missing it. And I'm like, okay, something's missing and I need to understand how to do this. How do I soften? How do I open up? How do I allow these different types of intimacy in? And so if you haven't noticed, I am an avid researcher. So between receiving coaching and doing my own research and signing up for programs like Brene Brown's Dare to Lead program, and you know, every time she writes a book or releases a special, I am on it. But I love learning and absorbing the different ways that our brains and our souls and our hearts work so we can cultivate the connections that we're all craving. And there was a moment where I was just like, if everyone wants connection, then why don't we have it? And it's because there is a lack of knowledge and language around how to identify exactly what it is that we want and then how to communicate it to the people in our lives. So that's my goal with this episode, is to give you some language to have clarity around your desires, and then starting the conversation with the people in your life around their desires to understand them more, to understand yourself more, and then that is going to deepen the relationships in your life. It's going to deepen your level of intimacy. So this is my framework. You will not hear it broken down like this anywhere else. A friend sent me a clip of a girl on TikTok talking about 5 different types of intimacy, but I definitely put my own spin on this because I think there's more than 5. So let's dive right in. So the first one obviously is sexual. We all know sexual intimacy is a thing, but then we also have financial intimacy. We have emotional intimacy, we have intellectual intimacy, we have physical intimacy, which is different than sexual intimacy, and then we have spiritual intimacy. So I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of the 5 love languages, and I think that I probably read that book 10 years ago or more, who knows, and I think that if I remember correctly, they tell you to identify your primary and your secondary. So you have your primary love language and your secondary love language, but I subscribe to the belief that we should speak all 5 love languages and receive all 5. That's my belief. And I believe that because I think that the one that we say that we don't care about is probably the one that we didn't receive. And so we've convinced ourselves that we don't need it. And I came to that conclusion through the deep healing and inner work and inner child work that I've done over the years. So I think that we all should speak and receive all 5 love languages. And I think that I have a similar belief with the 6 different types of intimacy. So I think that there is the same exact concept of if you feel like, oh, I don't need this, it's probably because you were deprived of it at some point, or you don't feel worthy of it. So this may get a little deep. And what I actually did to really help you, like if you're like, ooh, yes, I want to learn about this, to really help you dive deeper, I created a free PDF. It's a journal exercise where you can answer some questions to help you identify which intimacy is the most important to you and why. And then rating each intimacy on a scale of 1 to 10 of where it is in your life, and then doing some journaling and really sitting with how you can improve that intimacy. Having that clarity is going to be really, really powerful. So if you're interested in that free PDF, you can go to niajae.com. That's Niajae.com, and you'll see 6 types of intimacy. Click on it, enter your email address, and download that free PDF. And then definitely share with me. Like, I want to hear your feedback. Always, always, always. I love when you share your feedback with me. It brightens my day to receive a message like, I just listened to your podcast episode and I feel this way. Because I love learning, I don't do this podcast just to speak. I do this to learn about people. So if this is resonating, if it's not resonating, if you have something to contribute, if you have more questions, I want to hear them. Last thing, before we dive into what each type of intimacy means, I do want to share with you my top love languages in order of importance, because like I said, I think that we should speak and receive all 5. I mean, hello, #abundance. Okay, so here's my love languages in order of importance. Number 1 is acts of service. Like, I am huge, huge, huge on acts of service. Number 2 is quality time. And that hasn't always been a top love language, but I think that I've learned through my growth that time is the most valuable thing that you can give someone. So I've had people spend all types of money on me, but like really giving someone your time and doing something for them just really means a lot more. And I know this is slightly off topic, but I want to share this. I used to always say, time is money, time is money, time is money. And I listened to a Robert Kiyosaki seminar, and he says, time is not money. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So time is everything. So freaking powerful. Let me just tell you, when I heard that, it changed my life. So Robert Kiyosaki, he's changed my life in so many ways, just business-wise and mindset shifts. Like, he's amazing. So quality time is really, really important to me. So the next one is physical touch. This is also one that I used to, I guess, feel like I didn't need. It probably was at the bottom at some point, but it's because I wasn't raised around a lot of affection. And so when I actually received affection from someone I was dating, like more affection than like normal, I was like, oh, I really like this. This feels really good. And so that's why I say it's really important to do that deep inner work to see, like, the one that you're like, I don't need this, I don't care about this. It's probably because you were deprived of it and you convince yourself you didn't need it. But if you got it, like, how does it really make you feel? And then, you know, self-worth is another level of like us being able to receive. Okay, so the next one is receiving gifts. This probably used to be more important to me back in the day just because I like nice things, but it's like now, you know, I'm pretty successful in a sense, so I can buy myself whatever I want. So it's not as important as it used to be, but don't get it twisted. I still love receiving gifts. I really do. But it's not as important as it used to be to me. And then last but definitely not least, words of affirmation. So this is one, I feel like it's always been pretty low, but it's also the one that I've struggled with the most, because I used to always feel like my mom never told me she was proud of me and stuff like that. So like it's the one that I probably have the most struggle with. I didn't receive that encouragement and that support. And so now I receive a lot of words of affirmation, but it's still like my inner child still has a hard time like really letting it sink in. By the way, my mom did tell me I was amazing the other day, so my inner child is very happy at the moment. But it's something that I think as women we have to really tap into our divine feminine to allow that receiving, allow people to give us a compliment without shying away from it, you know? So those are my love languages in order of importance. And this is a really powerful exercise to do, and I shared it because it reflects what the free PDF that I mentioned is going to have you do. Identify which intimacy is the most important, put them in a list of importance, and what does happy, healthy intimacy look like for you in that specific area. So let's dive into the 6 different types of intimacy. So number 1 is sexual intimacy. Sexual intimacy is trust and being vulnerable with each other while engaging in sexual activity. And I want to stress the trust part and feeling safe with someone. Like, to me, that is good sexual intimacy, when you feel safe. And there's so many people that one, don't even feel safe in their own body to feel safe engaging in sexual activity with others. And yes, we do it all the time, but it's like that meaningless sexual intimacy is not fulfilling. And that's why, do not let me get on my soapbox. That's why so many women have not had orgasms. Like, when you look at the statistics of women that have never had an orgasm or rarely orgasms when they're engaging in sexual activity, it's insane. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because that's not what this podcast episode is about. So I will remove myself off of my soapbox. But I just want to stress that intimacy is about trust. And so trust and being vulnerable while engaging in sexual activity is really, really important. So the next one is financial intimacy, being able to work together and share your thoughts, feelings, needs, and desires about money with someone in a safe space where you feel you're being heard and your needs are being responsibly met. So financial intimacy can definitely look like a man supporting a woman, and sometimes women support men, but it is just supporting someone financially, paying for dates. And I think that this happens obviously a lot of heterosexual dating situations start this way, where the guy is paying for all the dates. I think that we live in a society right now where it's becoming more common for things to be more 50-50, and women are paying for stuff more than maybe in the past. But I still think that financial intimacy is really important. And I think in a relationship, setting goals, money goals, and, wealth goals and investment goals together is extremely powerful. I do feel like it's extremely rare because money is such a sensitive topic for so many people, but I think that financial intimacy is really, really important, not just in romantic relationships, but also business partnerships and having friends. Like, I am the type of person where I would love to have a friend where we set goals. And I try to do this with a recent friend that we are no longer speaking, but I try to do this with a recent friend. Like let's set goals for our business, and when we achieve these goals, we'll celebrate by going to the spa or celebrate by going to dinner. Having financial intimacy with someone will make life more enjoyable. I'm all about making life more enjoyable. Like, the one thing that I hate the most in life is taxes. So I'm always like, how can I make taxes more fun? How can I? And to me, that is, part of the journey. Like, sometimes we don't like doing certain things that we have to do, but how can we make it fun? And I think that having financial intimacy makes life more enjoyable, because we all have to make money. It's unavoidable. So we have to make money to survive and live. So how can you cultivate a financial intimate connection and make the process enjoyable versus it being uncomfortable, because so many people are uncomfortable discussing money and setting goals. So the next one is emotional intimacy, and I'm sure that this is probably the one that we have the most intimate relationships with, like people emotionally. So when you feel close to someone, safe to express your emotions, and you feel supported, you can let your guard down, be vulnerable, and share your fears, goals, dreams, and desires. Now, I feel like I am just a very open and vulnerable person. So maybe I'm in an emotional, intimate relationship with everyone. I'm in an emotional, intimate relationship with you guys, M&Ms. Like, I share my fears, goals, dreams, and desires with you all. But this one is, I think most friendships, if you don't feel supported by your friends, if you don't feel comfortable or safe to share your fears, goals, dreams, and desires, then are they actually friends? So this is the most common one when it comes to having emotional intimacy with friends, even with coworkers. You can share and be vulnerable with people that you work with. You can have emotional intimacy with family members, and you should definitely have emotional intimacy with your romantic partner. Now, there are situations, like, I'm just being really, really real. There are situations where you have, relationships where there's financial and sexual intimacy, but there's a lack of emotional intimacy, and the person may feel like something's missing from the relationship, but you can get that emotional intimacy from somewhere else and still be okay. Next week's podcast episode, we are going to talk about compersion and a little bit of polyamory. Another juicy topic. So make sure if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of these juicy topics, by the way. So yeah, we'll talk about that next week. So the next one is intellectual intimacy. When two people stimulate and enrich each other's minds and also help each other expand their way of thinking. So someone who can help you expand your mind and your vision of what's possible, and someone you can learn from. So I think this is really, really important. If you know me, you know that I love learning. I'm a sponge, and I'm always like researching and listening to podcasts and reading and taking some type of program to learn more. So intellectual intimacy is huge. Like, I am that person where, like, if I can't have an intellectual conversation with you, like, there probably won't be any other type of intimacy, like, period. I can't do it. So yeah, this one is really, really, really important to me. So then we have physical intimacy, which again is different from sexual intimacy. So physical intimacy is about touch and closeness between bodies. Your relationship doesn't have to be sexual or romantic to have physical intimacy. A warm, tight hug is an example of physical intimacy with a friend. So I think that there are a lot of people who love cuddling, for example, and cuddling doesn't always have to be with a romantic partner. Like, there are friends that cuddle, there are friends that hold hands, there are friends that have that closeness, and I think we are hardwired for that closeness. And when you are raised without affection, that can feel extremely uncomfortable to you, but I think that it's something that we do need, and it's something that's really important, and it fills our cup if we allow it in. Now, if you are in a romantic relationship, this can look like holding hands, cuddling, kissing, but it doesn't always have to be in a romantic relationship. So I have a friend who talks about she loves cuddling with her friends. I see friends that like hold each other's hands and stuff like that, and I think it's the cutest thing ever. I'm not a hand holder, but not because I don't want to, is because it's something that's not natural to me. You don't see two, heterosexual platonic women holding hands in New York. Like, you don't see that. It doesn't happen. And so I wasn't raised that way, but when I see it, I'm like, oh my God, they are the freaking cutest. Like, I want to hold one of my friends' hands. They'll probably think I'm crazy, because I feel like I've also attracted other people that are not used to affection or comfortable with affection as well, because we tend to attract people that, are similar to us. And so I have learned, though, over the years, like I now crave affection. I remember dating someone who was very affectionate, like everywhere we went, he wanted to hold my hand. And if we were like walking and something separated us, like someone walked between us or a pole or something, and we had to separate hands, he would always put his hand out for my hand. And it was so weird to me because I wasn't used to that level of affection in like PDA. But I was like, when I finally just like softened, and this is like really allowing yourself to be in that divine feminine, because so many women are in their masculine right now, and like we're not used to receiving affection and nurturing and that love anymore. And so I've been working on softening, and when I finally softened and allowed it in, I was like, ooh, this feels really good. Like, I really like this. And like admitting that to myself, and now being open to that. And I'm trust me, I still get in my head, but I have a therapist that's like, Niajae, get out of your head and into your body. So I'm working on it, because it's like I want it, but at the same time, like my energy probably resists it, because it is a little uncomfortable for me. Because in that situation, I allowed myself to really like just kind of surrender to what was going on in that relationship, and then he broke my heart. So that's why we don't soften and allow the affection and love and nurturing in, because we're guarding our hearts. Because if we lose it, especially if you have abandonment issues, if you soften and allow it in and then lose it, it's going to be painful. But I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. I would have rather loved and lost than to never love at all. Like, I still remember those memories and the magical experiences we had, and it was worth it. Like, yeah, he broke my heart, but I mean, I wouldn't go back and change it, because that experience taught me so much. I learned so much. It contributed to the woman that I am today. So just being willing to open up to intimacy and be vulnerable and allow it in, because it will transform who we are. It will fill those holes or cracks or gaps or whatever in our heart that is keeping us from feeling fulfilled and whole. So yeah, allowing it in, allowing that inner child to be nurtured. It's a powerful process. And then if you're in a romantic relationship, so definitely, identifying your level of physical intimacy. So not just sex, but like physical intimacy. Like, do you love kissing? Do you love making out? Like, do you love cuddling? These things are really important to understand about yourself, because if you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't like to hold hands, kiss, or cuddle, and that's something that you desire, it can really cause shame, embarrassment, guilt. It can, if you're a woman, it can cause you to shut down your femininity and your sensuality and detach from your divine feminine. And that is a whole ball game that we want to try to avoid. And one of the things that I feel really passionate about, you guys know I'm passionate about so many things. One of the things that I feel really passionate about more recently is helping women connect back to their divine feminine. So I do energy analysis at Bliss Bar Meditation Studio, and the amount of women that come in that are operating in their masculine is insane. It is insane. So I feel really strongly about women just identifying what they desire, what they need, and being able to communicate it to the men in their lives. So, or women, because, we're definitely LGBTQ friendly here. Be able to communicate it to your partner so you can receive it, and really working on removing any blocks that's preventing you from being able to receive it. So the last one is spiritual intimacy. Now, this one is important. So spiritual intimacy is the process of opening your heart, the core aspect of yourself, allowing someone to see all of your parts, your light and your shadow. And it is the process of profoundly connecting to the core of your being without giving up your own self. So it's important that we really honor our core essence. And when we're in intimate relationships, we can tend to mold to other people or shift ourselves to complement someone else. So this is connecting just on a deeper level, and this can include having deep spiritual conversations, engaging in transformational activities together, meditation, going to retreats, going to a Joe Dispenza workshop, and really holding space for spiritual depth and growth. So holding space for growth is something that I feel like a lot of people aren't used to doing, because we tend to treat people as they were versus as they are. And when we go through a dark night of the soul, it literally is the death of our old self. And so to me, a spiritual, intimate connection is holding space for growth and learning to treat someone as they are after they have transformed into the being that they are. And we're growing butterflies at Bliss Bar, and it's like, after you have gone through that metamorphosis process, you can't treat a caterpillar like a butterfly. They need two different things. And so to me, a spiritual, intimate connection is two people that really honor and respect each other's journey and hold space for that transformation. And that is so powerful. And I think the stage that I'm at in my life is like, I think that's why so many of my friendships have fallen away, because I was trying to develop that spiritual intimacy and even emotional intimacy, and there wasn't. And I'm like, this friendship doesn't serve me right now because I'm craving this spiritual intimacy. I am not the same person I was 2 years ago. I went through a dark night of the soul. I mean, hello, COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people went through a dark night of the soul. But so much happened for me even after COVID, so many transformations. I'm not the same person. You can't treat me like I am that person. And I think that that's what spiritual intimacy is about, really honoring someone's transformation, someone's growth, and treating them as they are and not as they were, and supporting that process. A lot of times people want you to stay the same for their own benefit. Because if I used to allow people to gaslight me and I went through my transformation and I'm like, fuck no, you can't gaslight me anymore, that's inconvenient for them because now they can't manipulate me like they were. You know what I mean? I just went off on a tangent, but it's true. It's true. People want you to stay the same because their tactics worked then and they may not work now. So some people don't want to see you transform. And to me, a spiritual, intimate connection is one that really supports that transformation and that growth and that expansion. And that is what I am here for these days. I'm like, bring on all the spiritual intimacy, because that is where I'm at in my life. And I'm here for it. I am here for it. All right, so let's do a quick recap of the 6 types of intimacy. So we have sexual intimacy, we have financial intimacy, we have emotional intimacy, we have intellectual intimacy, we have physical intimacy, and we have spiritual intimacy. So take a moment and think about which one is the most important to you. Which one would you say you have the most healthy connections in? Which one do you feel right now that isn't important to you, and why? So go ahead and download this PDF, because when I tell you, it will be a game changer for you to identify these things. It is going to be a game changer, because once you have clarity around it, you can communicate it to the people in your life and also ask the important questions to understand their needs and desires, and it is going to deepen every connection that you have when you have this clarity. And when I say deepen, there may be a couple relationships that fall away, because the clearer that I became on these things, the more friendships started falling away that weren't in alignment with what it is that I needed. And I had to be okay with it. It made me a little sad, obviously, but I had to be okay with them falling away, because it created space for the types of intimacy that I actually crave. I want to wrap up by talking about intimacy intelligence. Just like I feel like we need more emotional intelligence, we need more intimacy intelligence. So my definition of intimacy intelligence is having adequate knowledge around the different types of intimacy, the ability to be transparent in which are most important to you, and self-awareness in how you show up in each area. This is so important. And if you are someone who values connection and communication, you have to have intimacy intelligence. In order to have intimacy intelligence, you have to practice being transparent and vulnerable, and being willing to share your fears and insecurities, as well as your emotions and desires, in a space of intimate connection. So if you had to rate yourself in intimacy intelligence, I mean, obviously you're doing pretty good after listening to this episode. But if you had to rate yourself in intimacy intelligence and how you're showing up in your intimate relationships, like, are you really holding space for transformation for people? Are you a comfortable person to talk about finances and financial goals with? Like, are you feeling safe and trusting and trustworthy in your sexual connections? You know, like, these are really important questions to reflect on. So I think that part of emotional intelligence is not just focusing on how people are communicating with us and understanding them, but also having self-awareness around how we're communicating to others, and picking up on others' nonverbal cues, but also our own body language and how we're showing up. And this is something I had an opportunity to reflect on, like, how people view me. Like, that's part of emotional intelligence. Like, I know how I view myself, but understanding how people view you is also important. So when it comes to that intimacy intelligence, understanding your needs and understanding how you are showing up, and that's that inner work, like choosing to be the best version of yourself. So I want to show up in my intimate connections the best version of myself. And so what does that look like? And are people perceiving and receiving it? You like that, right? Perceiving and receiving. All right, M&Ms, I am done talking this podcast episode. I hope you found value in this, because I am so obsessed. You know, I obsess about every topic I talk about, but I'm so obsessed with this topic, I legit want to write a book. Who thinks I should write a book? DM me, like, book please. I seriously want to write a book about this, like probably an ebook, not like a legit full-length book, because I'm still learning. But I know that all the coaching I've received and all the research that I've done, I have a wealth of knowledge on this topic, but I'm working on implementing it and actually opening myself up to these different types of intimacy. Because again, being raised in New York by a single mom, like, I didn't receive a lot of nurturing growing up. I didn't receive a lot of affection growing up. So these are things that I had to develop in my adult years. And the fact that I've shown up and done the work and gained the self-awareness around it, if someone else is like, I'm from New York, I didn't have any affection, you know, like they can totally relate, and I have so much to share in that area. So I really am feeling called to do some type of book or even a workshop, like a workshop where I can add in some sound healing, because opening up that heart chakra and opening up that sacral chakra will really help enhance the level of intimacy. So if you're feeling that idea, let me know. When you reach out to me on Instagram and send me a DM, it definitely keeps me motivated to keep creating. So if you're feeling that idea, let me know, because it will pump me up. And you know, when I get pumped up, I get it done. All right, if you know someone that needs to hear this message, definitely share this podcast episode with them. Next week, we are going to be talking about compersion. And if you don't know what that is, then you want to make sure you do not miss next week's episode. All right, M&Ms, until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.